Hello everyone, welcome to the course of Survey of Major English-Speaking Countries. Today, we're going to learn Chapter 14, Education of the United States. This lecture is about Lesson A, the general introduction of the education in this country. Americans trace the origin of their nation to the English colonists who came to the eastern coast of North America in the early 17th century. The largest group of these first settlers, the Puritans, founded the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1630. Like others who followed them to America, the Puritans sought the freedom to practice the religion, a freedom they couldn't enjoy in their own native country. They wanted to build up a paradise that they could worship God as a true Christian should. They found this freedom in the small towns and villages they built on the edge of the forest in Massachusetts. One of the things the Puritans believed was that every person should be able to read the Bible. 100% literacy seemed like a dream in the 17th century. Within just a few years after their arrival in North America, they took steps to set up a system of education in their colony. In 1634, they opened a Latin grammar school, a school for those who wanted to prepare for college. This was a tax-supported public education, open to all boys regardless of social classes. In 1636, just 16 years after their settlement, Harvard University was founded for the training of religious ministers. During these years, the Puritans passed laws declaring that all property could be taxed for the common good, which included the support of schools. They also passed a law requiring all parents to provide reading education for their children. Thus, in less than 20 years, the Puritans introduced two practices that still influence American youth today: compulsory education for all children and public taxation for school. The situation was different in other British colonies in North America. In Pennsylvania, for example, while there were several different religious groups, decisions about education were left to the leaders of each church. In southern colonies, such as Virginia, those who could afford tutors hired them for their sons and sometimes for their daughters. The older sons of wealthy landowners were sent to England for their education. Occasionally, a landowner might allow a literate adult to teach reading to their children of poor whites and perhaps a few blacks. But mostly, custom forbade the teaching of children of slaves to read. Throughout the colonies, young men and women could receive an education in reading by becoming an apprentice in a small business. It had been a practice in England to have young boys and girls live with their families of those for whom they worked, like bakers, printers, and carpenters. In return for a youth's work, the business owner promised to teach him or her to read, as well as how to do a craft. This practice was brought to North America. In general, the institutionalized education system was primarily shaped in the colonial period. The educational system could be categorized into three sections: the universal education, emphasizing the literacy so that people could read the Bible. This kind of education is tax-supported and community-supported public education. The vocational education prepared children for adulthood by teaching them practical skills. And the third kind is the tutorial education, providing the education for the wealthy children by homeschooling. Actually, At the end of the 18th century, elementary education throughout the United States was in local hands. State governments were allowing local districts to set up and run their own elementary schools. Most often, these schools were in one-room buildings, with one teacher for all the students who could attend. The teacher, who was hired by a committee of citizens, had to teach what the local community expected. And so, the future was decided. Education in the United States was to remain in the hands of the states and the local governments, from Pennsylvania to Delaware, from Alaska to Louisiana. Each of the 50 states in the country has its own law regulating education. From state to state, some laws are similar, others are not. For example, all states require young people to attend school. Thus, every child in America is guaranteed up to 13 years of education. This is true regardless of a child's race, religion, sex, learning problems, physical handicap, or inability to speak English. Some states play a strong role in the selection of learning material for the students. For example, state committees may decide which publishers' textbooks can be purchased with state funds. In other cases, decisions about buying instructional material are left entirely to local school officials. Americans have strong tendency to educate their children about major public concerns and problems, such as environmental pollution, nuclear issues, neighborhood crime, and drugs. Responding to public pressure, boards of education in different areas often add courses on various relevant issues to the elementary and secondary school curriculum. American students pass through several levels of schooling, and thus several curricula on their way to a higher school diploma. The first is elementary school. In statistical reports published by the federal government, elementary school usually means grades kindergarten, also say grades K through 8. And sometimes grade 4, 5, and 6 make up what is called a middle grade school. The second is the secondary school. In many districts, junior high school includes grade 7, 8, and 9. And in some other districts, grades 7, 8, and 9 are included with the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. All 6 are set to form a senior high school. Although there is no national curriculum in the United States, certain subjects are taught in all K-12 systems across the country. Almost every elementary school provides instruction in these subjects: mathematics, language art, the subjects that include reading, grammar, composition and literature, penmanship, science, social studies, the subject that includes history, geography, citizenship, and economics, music, art, and physical education. In many elementary schools, courses in the use of the computers have been introduced, and in some cases, a second language, that is, other than English, is offered in the upper elementary grades. Most secondary schools offer the same core of required subjects: English, mathematics, science, social studies, and physical education. But school boards differ greatly from one district to another in the amount of the class time they want the high school student to spend on these basic subjects. In some high schools, for example, students must complete 3 years of mathematics before graduation. In high school, students are guided by school counselors in choosing electives, which can range from specialized academic to vocational subjects. For example, high school offers more than 1 year, in some cases several years, of math, science, and the other core subjects. And they complete the required units in these core subjects. Students can take additional units as electives. The elective courses vary from school to school. Some high schools specialize in particular types of subjects. For example, business education, industrial trade, architecture, economics, or foreign languages. A student planning to be a physician would want to attend a school offering many electives in science. At elementary and secondary levels, students usually attend a public school close to their home. If you have a preference for a particular public school or school district, it is usually necessary to buy or rent a property in that area. It is quite normal for Americans to ask a real estate agent to find them a home in a particular school district. Many towns provide transport to school, the school bus. Although this may only be provided for certain schools or age groups. The school day in elementary and high school can vary, but it usually runs from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., with an hour for lunch. In high school, students take 6 one-hour classes or 4 90-minute classes, with 10 minutes breaks between classes. Extracurricular activities and sports are scheduled after school hours, including American football, volleyball, swimming, ice hockey, basketball, singing choir, computing program club, cheerleading, cooking, and many other activities. It is common for children in elementary school to take a packed lunch to school. Although some schools allow children who live close to the school to go home for lunch. Most elementary and secondary schools provide a self-service cafeteria where children may purchase lunch, and some children receive free lunches under local welfare programs. About 90% of American students attend public schools, which are supported by American taxpayers. The other 10% attend private schools, for which their families choose to pay special attendance tuition and fees. Each fall, more than 70 million young Americans walk through the doorways of about 100,000 elementary and secondary schools for the start of a new school year, filling classrooms from kindergarten to 12th grade. They attend classes for an average of 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, until the beginning of the following summer. These students are part of the most ambitious undertaking in the history of education, the American effort to educate an entire national population. The goal is, and has always been, to achieve universal literacy and to provide individuals with the knowledge and the skills necessary to promote both their own individual welfare as well as that of the general public. Though this goal has not yet been fully achieved, it remains an ideal towards which American education system is directed. The process which has been made is notable both for its scope and for the educational methods which have been developed in the process of achieving it.